Hi, this is Jonathan Rosenher, the Jerusalem psychotherapist. This week's Torah and Psychology post for Parshas Va'era is going to discuss narrative therapy. In this week's Parsha, we read about the four expressions of Geula: V'yotzeitzi, v'yatzalti, v'ga'alti, v'lakachti. And on Seder night, these four expressions of redemption are represented by the four cups of wine that we drink. And it's interesting that the halacha says that in between the first, second, and third cup, a person is allowed to drink. But in between the third and fourth cup, a person is not allowed to eat or drink. So what is the distinction between these different cups and the fact that you're allowed to drink or not drink? One explanation is that the first, second, and third expressions, and therefore the first, second, and third cup, represent physical freedom, the physical redemption, but the fourth expression is spiritual redemption. And that even when a person is physically removed from a state of enslavement, in their mind they might still regard themselves, they might still think of themselves as being a slave, and therefore the confirmation of redemption, the confirmation of freedom, only comes after the fourth expression, the fourth cup. And this is therefore signified by a person being allowed to have an interruption or drink in between the first, second, and third cup, but not in between the third and fourth, because that is the most important stage of the redemption, the most important stage of signifying our freedom. And Leil Seder, and the expressions of redemption, and the cups that we drink, is all part of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. So it's all part of telling our national and our individual story, our narrative, of what makes up our status of being Am Yisrael. And narrative therapy focuses on a person's story, the narrative that they have, the narrative of their life, the events and experiences that they have in their life, and the meaning that they give to them. And narrative therapy tries to help a person to be able to become an observer, to be able to become a storyteller. They're able to tell the story of their life and put their narrative together, but as an observer, from an objective point of view, that they're able to look at their problems from an external perspective, rather than thinking that they and their problems are like one. And this is the main technique of narrative therapy, to be able to externalize the problem, to be able to put this narrative together and be able to either change the narrative or to consider perhaps a new narrative to a person's life, because previously they might have given a certain meaning to the events that is developed into a problematic way of understanding themselves or understanding the world. So this change in narrative can be very beneficial to be able to function and look at themselves and the world in a different way, in a more effective way. So, for example, in Yetzias Mitzrayim, Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim, when we say Avadam Ayinu leParo b'Mitzrayim, this is a way of externalizing the problem. We don't say Avdei Paro. We don't say that we were Paro's slaves, which is an intrinsic status, but rather it's describing a situation. We were slaves to Paro in Mitzrayim. It's a way of looking at the situation, becoming a storyteller, to be able to explain the narrative of how we became free. And these four expressions of Geula is a way of putting all of the events together, all of these experiences together, to putting our narrative together. And we take the first, second, third, and fourth expression, the first, second, third, and fourth cup, as a way of changing our narrative from a narrative of slavery to a narrative of freedom. Have a great Shabbos and keep well.